back, Chris. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. For today's discussion about the theory of Carl Roger. About kay Carl, isa siyang therapist bago naging theorist. So, talagang focus niya ay sa practice. Like other therapists, he talk the client, yung, kaya kung theory niya is nakasentter talaga sa client. Next po. What do you want to become in life? As we grow older, nagbabago yung decision natin sa buhay. Like kung ano yung mga gusto natin, kung ano ba gusto mong maging work, maging ano, ganyan. Kung anong pangarap natin, nagbabago siya dahil din sa mga parents natin, yung mga kasama natin sa bahay, na pinapositive regard tayo. Like, uy, pwede ka maging engineer. Kaya parang pag mo, parang naisip mo na bakit ba sa maging engineer kung ito ba talaga yung focus ng life kong ganyan. Ito na ito na yung tinatawag na barriers. Ito na yung tinatawag na barriers. So, dito papasok yung ideal self and real self na i-discuss ni Miss Christine.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christine Casaklang, and I'm going to discuss about Carl Rogers' self-theory, real self, and ideal self. Carl Rogers believed that we all own a real self and ideal self po. First, the real self. Of course, the true self po is what we are at our heart. The self that makes us feel most at peace in our own body is the one that feels most genuine to who and what we truly are. At kahit marami po itong flaws and hindi ito perfect, it feels the most authentically like us. And it's the one we need to develop a stronger love for. And next naman po is yung the ideal self. The person we believe we want to become, the person we work to become, and the person we believe others expect us to become. And dahil po sa influence and environment natin, nade-develop ang ating ideal self. It is the self that contains values learned from others po. It is the sum of all the things we believe we ought to be and what we believe others ought to be. Want natin ma-reach yung expectation and demands ng mga tao sa ating paligid dahil sa tingin natin we feel more loved and accepted. It's like a validations from other people. And unfortunately, having an ideal self po that is too strong might be harmful for our mental health. Dahil nanghihingi kasi tayo ng validation from others. And we tend to change what we truly are. Next po. Carl Rogers' self-theory, real self, and ideal self. Rogers' self-concept begins to develop in early childhood throughout the lifespan. It is the belief about himself, how he evaluate himself, and a mental picture of who he is. High congruence lead to a greater sense of self-worth and a healthy, productive life. So, para kay Carl Rogers, ang nag-start ang self-concept when we are in our early childhood po, and continue throughout our life. And based po rin sa kanya, ang self-theory of real self and ideal self, it consists of his self-perception, self-evaluation, and mental image of himself. And the idea of personality development developed by Carl Rogers po was founded on humanistic psychology na ang lahat ay nag-i-exist in a world full of experiences. Yung ating responses daw po to other people and sa ating environment are shaped by these experiences, interior feelings, and thoughts as well. And according din po kay Carl Roger, ang behavior ng isang tao ay influenced by self-actualizations, which drive people to work hard and realize their fullest potential. During this process din kasi na de-develop yung self-concept ng isang tao or the ego structure of the person. Kapag positive mag-isip ang isang tao, they feel safe and secured. But they could feel dissatisfied then with who they are if they have a poor and negative self-concept.
Thank you, Miss Christine. As we talk about the Carl Rogers self-theory, we are now going to move on to Carl Rogers' theory of personality and congruence. So as we can see here, we have here two circles, which is what we call the Venn diagram. The first circle represents the self-image or the real self, while the second one is the ideal self. So as we can see here, the self-image is different to the ideal self. So that's what incongruent means. So kapag incongruent, ibig sabihin, magkaiba daw po si self-image at si ideal self. So there's only a little overlap between the two circles. Here, self-actualization will be difficult. So na-discuss kanina ni Ms. Christine kung ano yung self-actualization. Wait lang po, ayan. Magiging difficult daw siya kapag daw incongruent. So mamaya tatalakayin natin ano nga ba ibig sabihin nito. Now, let's move on to congruence. So, as we can see kanina, maliit lang yung overlap. Tapos, mas lumaki yung overlap nila. So, this is what we call congruence. So, nagkakaroon ng pagkakasundo between self-image and ideal self. So, as we can see, there's more of an overlap. And this person can self-actualize. So, kanina incongruence, nahihirapan siyang mag-self-actualize. It will be difficult. While ngayon, oh my gosh, sorry, may napindot po. Then ngayon is mas nagiging madali para sa kanya mag-self-actualize. So now let's talk about its meaning. So figure A shows that when a person ideal self is not consistent or match with that what happens in our life, we experience incongruence. For instance, our ideal self is to finish college and be more successful engineer. But our real self is we do not make an effort to study our lessons. The more gap between our real self and ideal self incongruence occurs, then anxiety and depression may arise. So as we can see here, our ideal self wants to graduate college. So yung gusto natin, para sa sarili natin, makapagtapos tayo ng kolehiyo at maging mahusay na inhinyero. But our real self, kunyari, for example lang naman to, our real self is not paying attention to classes. So nagkakaroon ng hindi pagkakasundo sa kung ano yung gusto mong maging at sa kung ano yung ginagawa mo. So that what is figure A shows. And now let's move on to figure B. So figure B shows that when a person's ideal self is consistent or matched with what happens in our life, we experience congruence. For instance, our ideal self is to become famous volleyball player and our real self is giving more practice, discipline ourselves. Then congruence occurs. If the real self and ideal self are closely matched, our self-esteem, trust, and self-worth develop. So dito naman po, compared sa incongruence kanina, hindi nagkakasundo kung ano yung ginagawa natin sa kung ano yung gusto natin. Dito naman po sa figure B, nagkakasundo po sila. So, yung ideal self natin, gusto natin maging para sa sarili natin ay maging isang successful volleyball player. Pero ang ginagawa natin ngayon ay nagpa-practice tayo ng disiplina para sa sarili natin. So, nagkakaroon ng pagkakasundo sa kung anong gusto nating maging at sa kung anong ginagawa natin ngayon. So, that wraps up Carl Rogers' theory of personality and congruence. So, that's all po for our presentation about real self versus ideal self, including theories of Carl Rogers.